Hello there and welcome to Travels with Geordie. If this is your first visit, my name is Peter Knowles and I live on, well, one or two or sometimes three of these classic wooden motor cruisers currently here in Genoa Bay, British Columbia, along with the loving memory of my pup Geordie, all the while fixing them all up for some pretty ambitious cruising. If that's the sort of thing that you might find interesting, please consider sticking around and subscribing. I'd love to have you. About that home is out of the shed and functional and rafted up with the other two boats, and it just makes me so happy to see her out here. Anyway, nowhere close to finished. I have to do just a little touch up this corner of the paint as well. But lots of little things to do yet, but it's getting pretty close to being functional and getting off to the festivals. Oh my gosh, it's just super. Anyway, the episode you're gonna watch the timeline might be messed with just a hair to make it actually a story, but over the next couple of episodes, and I suspect there will be at least one bonus episode coming up, we'll catch up with where we are right now. Okay, cut this at the same point. There we go. It was actually not that hard to get this fridge out of here, and the next project is putting the electrical panel in right here, and I was trying to figure out how I was going to make it hinge or open or whatever. Heck with that, it's going to be fixed, and I'm going to work on it from inside underneath here, and you don't have to get at the back of this type of electrical panel very often. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Yeah. Oh, this will be a piece of cake. Oh, yeah. All right, after a fair amount of scribing and fiddling, and I put a couple of rabbits actually in so it sits a little snugger in there. That slides right in there. Excellent. Excellent. You know, design is a funny thing. It really takes time to see how everything comes together before you really know what it is you want to do. This leg for the helm was designed to give me extra structure, more mechanical advantage. But actually, if I put a big block in here to the clamp, that would be perfectly adequate mechanical advantage from that vantage point. And that gives me a usable, much more usable space on this panel, which is actually what I need more than anything else right now. Yeah, yep. Okay, let's get that out and see if we can tidy this up. Little ratchet stubby. I'm loving this thing. It's come in so handy. Okay, I've just put a little support ledger in there for a little, I don't know, modesty panel or something I could call it, that's going to go in here. And that's something I want to put in while this was all apart, because it's a lot easier to do it. And I'll put a little base piece in here. This kind of tidies up this whole area, and in fact gives me an opportunity for a couple of less commonly used but possible switches here at the helm. And there we go. Can't see the nails, can't see the line. And I put a little closure piece in here with the edges eased a little bit and softened at the corner. Same deal. Okay, we'll just get this oiled in here. Okay, so the basic layout for this panel is going to be the AC panel, the DC panel, the two battery switches, and then there'll be two circuit breakers here. I only have one of them for now. This will be for the windlass and for the inverter, and I don't have the one for the inverter. And that leaves me a little chunk here where I can put some other components that I normally like to put in a panel, which would be voltmeter, ammeter, and for both the AC and the DC, but they're not going in just yet. Okay, so really just gotta lay this all out. So I'm gonna use tape again and set this basically in parallel with the edge of the piece of wood. So that'll be my inside mark. Oops. I can say I never really enjoy cutting out for these panels. It's always a bit of a... Anyway, it's okay. So now the battery switches. 1, 2. Now you'll notice I only scored from below to keep it from blowing out rather than coming all the way back through, because I'm trying to be very, very careful with the veneer on the top side here, because the way these sit in here, they just barely sit there nice and flush. So I do not want to blow out of any of this veneer. Nice, 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 nice. Okay, it's time to talk about the wheel, as time is getting a bit urgent. Okay, if you've been following along, you know it had this base, and then this sprocket, and then this big steel block which has 3 pins that fit into holes in the bronze here, and it goes all on there with a nut to hold it on. And it's a bit sloppy because the steel has worn away at the shaft. There's several large gouges in here. Okay, so I've been unable to find a machine shop that is willing to take on any of this work, and in fact during that process I've completely redesigned how this is going to work, but I can't do it this week. I need to be able to steer the boat like tomorrow. So I've changed the way this is going to work. Basically, I'm going to put the sprocket back on the back of this block with some machine screws, which I'm actually just drilling and tapping right now. Place it on the shaft further in so that it's not where it used to be. Therefore, it has much less slop because it's not sitting in the old ground up spaces. I'll use some washers on here to make sure that there's room for the chain. Anyway, so what I'm doing now is basically, that's one of the old pins that just fell out. This is where I'm drilling new holes and tapping them for the new sprocket, not the sprocket, but the re-drilled out and countersunk sprocket to sit in. And if this works well, and I can get that aligned, I may actually put 3 more holes further out just to make it all that much stronger, because I'm getting some 1032 screws in here, and that's pretty good, but they're not very far from the center line. Therefore the total shear on them would be pretty high if I was to really wail on them, although the likelihood of me shearing off 3 1032 screws at once would be quite impressive. Anyway, so I'm going to drill now for one more of these, and I'll tap it, and we'll see how we can move on from there. Okay, now I have to drill these pretty deep because I don't have a bottom tap. I only have regular cheap tap set, where the first quarter of inch or so are just the starting teeth to start to cut the thread. Normally, if you want to be able to tap into the bottom of a hole, you start with this, and then you finish off with what's called a bottom tap, which doesn't have these tapered teeth at the beginning. It basically starts with almost full depth teeth, so you can tap basically almost to the bottom of a hole. Okay, let's get this off of here and get those other holes drilled plenty deep and get them tapped. Now, because I only have one drill of this size, I'm going to use a little lubricant. WD-40 is not the very best, but it's better than nothing. And now to start to tap them, I'll just get the teeth to bite, holding it straight without putting the T-bar in. I find by the time you put the T-bar in here, it's hard to keep it straight, especially on a cheap set like this. Now, I am not a machinist, but my tapping technique is about 1/3 of a turn in and half a turn out. I mean, half a turn in and 1/3 of a turn out. So it actually sort of clears the swarf away relatively regularly, so it doesn't start to build up too much. Okay, once I've gone a fair ways, I'll take the tap out and I'll flush the hole. And I do that by just taking the nozzle and in the hole, and that'll blow out all the swarf, and I'll do that over the garbage can under the bench here. Ah, it's so satisfying to see all that swarf come flying out of there. Now again, because pretty soon this tap will bottom out, I have to be very careful that I sense that and don't strip the whole arrangement by trying to cut too hard. Ooh, that was a bit creepy. Huh, they're not equidistant. Whew, thought my alignment was all off. So I'm going to consider this a proof of concept. I'm going to carry on now with the installation of the steering wheel, the helm, all of that, the cable, the chain, which is a big project. And if that all seems like it's going well, there's a bit more meat out here on this boss. So I may grind off this little shoulder and put 3 more screws in, which will make this completely bulletproof. But let's move on to the next step. So the last few days have been spent wiring, and it's really coming along relatively well. I'm pleased, as well as an all-new arrangement for the bilge pumps and all the wiring down in there. I can't actually close up the engine yet because I'm going to get a new engine temperature gauge, because I absolutely don't trust the gnarly old one that came with the boat. And for just a few dollars at an auto parts store, I can get one that will at least be as good as that. Okay, let's put this back on. Okay, so I mentioned I've developed an all-new scheme for how this steering wheel is going to work, and that's that I'm going to abandon the prospect of having the chain outside like this. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to mount the wheel on a 1/2-inch shaft, and I'm going to run it through the helm panel here, through a couple of pillow blocks, which are pretty relatively available, and I'll put a sprocket inside the helm, which will go over and through a couple of pulleys and down. Problem is I just can't really arrange that all in the next couple of days, so this will have to do. In another sense, this is going to be a little bit frustrating in that I'm not going to bother sending the chain over to the side and down. I'm just going to go diagonally straight down to the pulley, and I'll show you why in just a moment. Okay, if you can disregard all the wires for a second. The original plan was for the chain to travel sideways and about here, go through 2 sprockets actually to turn to come vertical, and then around here it would switch to cable so that it could go through this big beautiful bronze shiv about here somewhere and head back to the rudder. Now, the problem is I'm not going to stick with this sprocket. As I just mentioned, the sprocket's going to end up inside here and the cable's going to end up turning about here. So the position of the turning sprockets as well as the position of this big shiv are going to change, especially the angle on it. So for now, I'm just going to run the chain straight from the sprocket down across the front of all of this to the shiv and down here to head back. Okay, so I'm carving up a little piece of mahogany that will be the block to hold that shiv, and I'm just playing with the angle that the shiv will sit on, making sure that this points straight up at the sprocket on the steering wheel, and it does. So that's pretty much ready to go. We have a frame right here I can put a big fastener into, and of course it's a stringer right here, and I'll run 2 fasteners down into that, and that's, as they say, not going anywhere. Okay, so this may seem like overkill, but in the context of steering, that doesn't bother me one bit. Holy mackerel. Yowza. bend that cotter over just yet, just in case I have to take these out again for some unbelievably strange reason. Okay, time to set up the chain. Now the reason I was going to originally send it over here and threw some chain idlers and down rather than switching to cable right away and just having cable shivs down is because I need a fair amount of travel. For the quadrant on the rudder to turn far enough to be meaningful, I have to move a fair amount of chain, and that's more than there is between the sprocket and somewhere here. So I need a fairly long length to be able to pass all that chain around and back the other way before it switches to cable to go around the shiv. Now, that's fine because I was going to put 2 sprockets here and so that it would be chained from there and then down. But even that may not be ideal because that's not very far either. So, you know what? I'm going to cross that bridge when I come to it. So let's measure roughly what I need. I need from there, to there, let's say 20 inches to give myself some more slack. And then halfway around the sprocket, maybe 6 inches or so. Yeah. So 26, let's call it 26 inches. Okay, so here I am looking at the quadrant down underneath the cockpit sole. It's kind of a sketchy sort of thing, but anyway, it's here and it's functional. I didn't bring the tripod out, so I'm gonna just measure this sort of arbitrarily. I'm gonna say from there, swinging it around from there. I'm seeing about 22, 24 inches, so the 26 inches we have planned is plenty. All right, so I splurged on a whole box of chain because, well, there was old chain on the boat, but it was in gnarly shape and I really didn't want to deal with a greasy, messy thing. Okay, so 26 inches of chain. That takes us to right there. And to identify that, I'm just going to put a pair of ice grips on it and then cut it. There we go. Okay, so I'm very fortunate that actually POEM came with a chain to cable arrangement before. So the ends of the cables have these fantastic swaged on, or how, I don't know what this is called, fitting with a nice hole in it. That hole is super handy because it perfectly fits a chain coupler link. So we just slide that through there, slide that through here, slide on the plate, and then the always entertaining clip. Anyone who's played with chain is familiar with these little items, and I find the easiest way to close these is with an appropriately sized pair of pliers, in this case vice grips. There we go. So if you can see the way that works, it has basically a little clip that locks it into both pins, and that's secure. There we go. And that one's clipped in. Very nice. So now we have a very tidy connection between chain and cable. In this case, the chain is a number 40 chain and the cable is 3/16. Okay, this is definitely going to be fussy. I'm going to pull the cable back through the boat, through the holes I've just drilled. Okay, so here come these two cables. And I'm just going to tuck it down through that hole right there to keep a little tension on it. Now this is a beautiful big bronze shiv, and it'll come around this way and come on the upper of these two slots, and I'll tuck it down through there just for now to keep some tension on it. Of course, this is nowhere near close because I have to go forward and put the chain on the helm, etc., etc. Alright, well, with my very brief experience dealing with wire rope, and that is largely setting up the helm on Geordie a few years ago, it seems that it is a lot easier to simply get some tension on everything, spool it up, and if it's tangled, sort it out later. Because trying to follow any twists and kinks in it while it is slack is very, very difficult. So, up and over the wheel, onto the sprocket. We put that tension on there and that tension on there, and so far we have a very nice operating helm. Alright, I've just leaned over the back of the boat and confirmed that this section of the quadrant pointing forward is indeed lined up with the rudder pointing astern. So I'm going to take some zip ties and just provide a little additional tension on here in the absence of any cable clamps, and start to continue to fine-tune this a little bit. Woohoo! Okay, so the next stop would be to put in some guide shivs, or turning shivs, or whatever you want to call them. And I have recently purchased some to do just this project. These were actually for MV Geordie, but they'll work perfectly well here. A couple more guide shivs, one back there and one up here just at the fuel filter. And wow, we have steering! Woohoo! Very nice, very nice, very nice. So I bought a cheap little ignition switch, which I'm going to use, and what I was hoping is it had an accessory position. It advertised it did, which I would have put the blower on. Would have been nice to turn left, turn the blower on, 5 minutes, whatever, and then ignition and start, but it doesn't actually. Anyway, it is just so cheap. So I'm going to keep my eyes open for a better one, but I'll wire this one up for now, and I'm going to wire the blower in on the ignition and wait that 5 minutes and then start, so that the blower is running all the time the engine's running. That's the plan anyway. No on the cheap ignition switch. Major flaw in my logic when I first thought of it. I imagined putting the blower on the ignition position. That way the blower would always be on when the engine's on, and the idea was I just turn the ignition on and wait 5 minutes and start the engine. False problem there is that by turning the ignition on, I've also energized the coil and possibly created a spark in the engine room. Yuck! So I bought a somewhat better, proper accessory position ignition key that will allow me to have a dedicated circuit to just start the blower, and much nicer switch anyway. And so turning it to the left, which is the accessory position, will just run the blower, nothing else in the engine bay, and then to the right is ignition and start, and happily the blower does continue to stay running after that. It's a much nicer switch anyway. I'm gonna have to do that backwards hole saw trick again, because this new ignition switch is even larger than the other one. Okay then, that's all wired up. Left for blower. I can assure you I've been playing with this long enough that it is well blown. Right for ignition and blower. And fuel pump. And start. I like it. Okay folks, this is monumental. I'm going to drive Poem out of the shed. I've already been running the blower for a good 5 minutes, and so I'm safe there. So we'll start her up. A lot quieter with the engine hatch back on. I'm going to go back and check that there's water coming out the exhaust. And there is indeed. left to do but put in gear. Now, as you remember, putting this boat in gear does not necessarily mean you go anywhere. I'll have to give it a little blip. And then we're off. Woohoo! High tide, but I think they'll still... Oh, this boat turns so nice. Oh, it's awfully nice to drive from here. So we're gonna go out, we're gonna go raft up with Geordie and Zephyrus, who are already rafted up, and we'll do a nice big three-way raft up. I love driving from here. Yeah. Feels like I'm driving a steam train. Play reverse a little bit. Well, welcome to the Travels with Geordie Beer of the Week, coming to this week from a lovely big raft up of Geordie, Zephyrus, and yes, Poem. We're sitting in the cockpit of newly, well, out of the shed MV Poem, and I am so satisfied with everything that has gone on with it. But that's not what we're here to talk about. Let's have a beer. Can you I've got Finn. Can you do the beer?
The most important thing is that we have a beer.
Yes, exactly.
Well,
a little beer on the phone. I mean, it won't be the first time. As I said,
you couldn't pour it.
I know. It has been just such a joy this last couple of days. The last few things, putting Poem together, getting the engine just tuned so nicely, having the helm work, and then driving it out here just a few minutes ago was the reward. You pour like I do.
No, it's the beer's fault.
Okay, exactly.
It's little wood chips in these glasses.
That's what you get for a carpenter's glass, I suppose. Okay, no, that'll be pretty good. So what actually are we drinking?
Oh, it's a 4 Mile. It's what
4 Mile?
their hazy Citra Pale Ale, which is
sort of our summer favorite. One of
favorites.
One of mine, because I love
Yep.
anything hazy.
And
4 Mile
Mile's
is a brewery in Victoria, and they have a lot of really good stuff. Really good stuff.
I think we might have to wait for about an hour for
Yeah,
that to settle
exactly.
down.
Well, we'll manage that.
Between the wood chips and the foam.
Oh no, the wood chips are part of it for me. It's all good.
Texture.
Have you been good, Finn? Are you going to be good? Oh, come on now. None of that. Can we try this? Or should we wait? Cheers.
Cheers.
Citra Hazy from
Citra.
4 Mile. I love that beer.
Yeah.
I just love that beer.
You can get a mustache from it too.
You can, exactly. I don't know how I managed not to get one. Anyway, let's jump into some stuff here. Okay, last week's winner of a Travels with Geordie t-shirt is Trent Hensley, 6022. Get a hold of me, Trent, and we'll make sure you get your Travels with Geordie t-shirt. Congratulations. I could drink that all night. I'd like to thank 2 new Patreons that came aboard recently, and they are Jeff Blake, or perhaps Blakey, and as well Ian Kirkwood. Thank you very much to both of you. Very, very grateful. Cheers to you both. When it's a beer like this, I'm just looking for all kinds of things to cheer. Come on now. That's a slippery slope.
I'm not sure what he thinks about it.
Yeah, not so much. Well, the neat thing about getting Poem out of the shed is that it's sort of the beginning of the next big chunk of this summer, and that is
Another cruise.
another cruise on
MV Zephyrs.
MV Zephyrs. So starting in just a few days.
It's supposed to be really hot.
It's supposed to be hot, really, really hot. So we'll be trying to find cool places to swim and stuff. We'll be cruising the Southern Gulf Islands, and what I like
Which will
about
be
that
colder
is
water.
colder water.
Swim
Yeah.
in.
What I like about the Southern Gulfs is that there's a pub in almost every little bay.
Right.
Not that way,
Right.
you know. Not,
So we don't have to buy any groceries.
no groceries required at all. Yeah, we can just go pub to pub. Very
Maybe
good.
dog food.
So I'm really looking forward to that because it's been a long slog this last couple of weeks, but it's been very satisfying, and really looking forward to the cruise.
Yeah.
All right, excellent. All we need now is a Travels with Geordie word of the week. Have I said it enough times already? If not, it's written on the bottom of this piece of paper.
This one?
Yeah.
Very satisfying.
The Travels with Geordie word of the week this week is satisfying. Satisfied, anything along those lines would be just fine. I'd be satisfied with anything.
Me too.
Well done. Cheers. See you next. Oh, possibly sooner.